Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which will see the live-action How to Train Your Dragon film not really seemingly having a strong opening weekend, at least domestically, with projections being only around $70 million, and I'll explain why I don't think that is really the best of openings for this movie. It shouldn't take much, especially if you've been following the box office for the last several weeks, going all the way back to the Memorial Day box office numbers. We know exactly what a healthy box office start can look like. This just does not seem to have it, at least in the domestic market. Now, what I think is going to happen is that this movie is going to perform pretty well in the international markets, and overall, because it is a kids film, and kids films tend to leg out over time, that over time the film will still be able to recoup its money that was spent on the film itself. But I don't think this is going to be as big as a film as I initially thought it was going to, right? Going into really the opening weekend, before the initial projections started to come out, they thought was that this could actually be one of the billion-dollar films to come out in 2025. It's from a very, very, very popular franchise. It is an adaptation that is meant to be essentially a shot-for-shot remake in many ways of the original animated film. Having seen the movie myself, I can say, yeah, basically almost every single shot in here is in some way also in the original animated film. Now, they've added some things because the runtime on this movie is longer, which is why overall I don't like the movie, because it's just unnecessary. There's no real purpose to the film itself, and it does nothing at all better or necessarily even as good as the original animated film did. And so for me, it's like, well, why go out and spend money on this movie when you can just see the same exact movie told almost the same exact way in animated form? The only real thing that might motivate you is, oh, well, this is in live action, and maybe there's an actor in the film that you really want to see, or you want to see the effects. The effects, again, are good, but I, again, would still say probably not as good as just looking at a film as an animated feature, especially when you're going to have the same designs of the original animated film. It just seems a bit redundant to have this kind of release. And so let's go ahead and talk about this. Also, Materialist comes out this weekend. Expected to get $11 million opening there. We'll talk more about that on the box office breakdown on Sunday, because today we're mostly going to be focusing on How to Train Your Dragon. So as you can see over on Box Office Theory, the Box Office Theory tracking has it only between $70 and $80 million in the domestic. Now, that's really, really bad. Traditional tracking had this around $65 million plus. And what's interesting is that if you do go over to Deadline, they do talk about how right now the industry is tracking, and even the studio itself is seemingly indicating that they only expect to get around $70 to $75 million in the domestic opening. Now, there's also many that project probably getting, maybe the hopes up that $100 million is at least within a possible range. But it is interesting to me just to see that this really isn't doing as well as I thought it was going to, or as many people may have thought it was going to, at least in its opening, right? Right now, all we can talk about is what the opening numbers seem to be indicating, and what this is indicating is that it's really not the strongest of starts that we have ever seen, especially even for this year. $70 to $80 million, though, is where they're currently tracking this. Materialist projected to get $11 to $16 million by the Box Office Theory people, by Sean Robbins, I should say. And the traditional estimate's only at $6 billion. So that's, again, one of these bold takes that Box Office Theory will sometimes take, because that's a pretty sizable margin difference, almost a $10 million on the high end, at least, difference there. So they are clearly thinking that Materialist is going to be able to drive some people out there. We'll have to wait and see. Again, marketing for the film has been, I guess, okay, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not the movie will actually be able to drive that out. Going to their pinpoint forecasting, they do think that How to Train Your Dragon through Friday, through this Father's Day. By the way, happy early Father's Day to all the fathers out there, all the dads out there. How to Train Your Dragon is expected to only get $73 million, again, on that average, in that average of that range, whereas Lilo and Stitch is still expected to hang around, right, by Disney, dropping 56%, one of the largest drops that we've actually seen for this movie, to around $14.1 million. And so this kind of reiterates what I was talking about last weekend during the box office breakdown, that Lilo and Stitch is slowing down actually quite a bit. So whereas there was the early indication that the film, because of its very strong opening and because of its subsequently strong holdover in week 2, has actually had much worse drops in week 3, 4, and 5 that make $1 billion not as likely, almost mathematically impossible at this point. However, it is still tracking well enough to where we're still talking about it being, ending its run well over $850 million. I would say between $850 and $950 as of right now. Of course, we'll have a more firm number there when we have the actual weekend numbers, when we get the international numbers in as well. It's still doing well. It's still making money. It only cost $100 million because it was originally made for Disney Plus. So they are definitely making quite a bit on this release, but Lord knows Disney was hoping this would be a billion-dollar film because, hey, that makes headlines, and that oftentimes gives the perception, especially to your stockholders, that things are going really, really well. And Disney needs that right now because there's not a lot of things going on in Disney's life, especially in the movies, to indicate that they're doing okay. This would be one of those things where, again, they are absolutely going to be able to run with profits on this one. They'll be able to sell this to their stockholders and to their board and everything like that. However, it is something that I think they probably were like, that cherry on top would have been to get to $1 billion. I, again, just don't think that's going to happen. The number 3 film is expected to be Materialist from A24, $13.2 million. We'll see. That would be towards the higher end of A24's releases. Ballerina is expected to drop 52%, so not the worst drop-offs that we've seen. But as I mentioned last weekend, it also had one of the worst opening weekends in the franchise's history. As far as ticket sales are concerned, it had the lowest overall ticket sales, and it was only marginally better than even just the first John Wick movie. And that, again, was the first John Wick movie before the audience was built up to the degree that it is. And so clearly Ballerina is not driving out the John Wick fans to go and see it to the same level as even John Wick 4, despite the fact that John Wick 4 is not universally loved by a lot of people. Again, I personally am a huge fan of it, but there's a lot of people that don't, a lot of people that are more critical of it than I am. That being said, it's clear that no matter what side of that debate you're on, you're not really showing up for Ballerina for the most part. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning still holding really strong, 37% hold there, but again, it all goes back to what was that original opening weekend. The original opening weekend for the movie was not all that great, and so because of that, and also because of the fact that it cost $400 million to make, yeah, this film is still not making its money back. Karate Kid Legends, $5.1 million, and so on and so forth. Going over to Box Office Pro, as you can see, they also expect, and again, no debate here, The How to Train Your Dragons, the live-action remake, is going to be the number 1 film. They have the higher end a bit more than Box Office Theory, and so right now, their range is between 80 and 90 million. Now, again, if it was my gut would say this movie should be doing well north of $100 million. Right, that there should be nothing holding this film back from getting to that amount. One of the biggest issues that I have with the film personally is not only, one, that it's redundant because it's been done before, but also because some of the casting honestly doesn't really feel like it works all that well. There was a lot of controversy and a lot of conversation about the casting of Astrid, especially because of the fact that it seemed like they were just going for the race swap character, or they were just going for whatever it is that they were going for. My issue is more so with the fact that the actress that plays Astrid does not actually feel like the character of Astrid from the original animated movie. Now, again, most kids especially are not going to care about that. Many people going to see the film as adults probably won't even care about that as well, especially if this is their first time actually watching it. But it really did honestly feel like, okay, yeah, this just seems like a very by-the-numbers, shot-for-shot remake that just seems completely redundant and unnecessary. So, again, I could see why, if the film does do less than $100 million domestic, if this film does not do as well as some of the other films that we've seen come out this year, like a Minecraft movie, for instance, or even like that of the Lilo and Stitch variety. Again, Lilo and Stitch is a film that is going to get $850 to $950 million. Based off of this opening here, I mean, we're talking maybe 500 to 600 plus million. And again, we'll save judgment on this and we'll save projections, for now. But yeah, this is not going to be a good situation if the numbers continue to hold as they are, because even the $80 to $90 million range for them is still much lower than I think that they were going to hope that it was going to actually be. Lilo and Stitch, 14 to 18 million is the number 2 film, and the third film for them, number 3 spot, is going to be for Ballerina with $10 to $14 million. Going over to the box office report, they also, of course, have very similar numbers here, $78 million for their opening for How to Train Your Dragon. And again, that is something that should be concerning because, generally speaking, it's sites like these that would actually be able to do better with word of mouth, pre-sales, etc., and get, those higher estimates that are likely to happen. They did that with Barbie, for instance, a couple years ago, but that's not what we're seeing here. And so, again, it will be interesting to see exactly where these numbers fall in. Lilo and Stitch at 15.5 million, a Materialist at number 3, Ballerina at the number 4. So it'll be interesting to see that battle between Materialist and Ballerina. Though, of course, I think A24 probably has a bit more momentum going for it than currently going on over at Lionsgate. Now, what is interesting is that there were some early numbers being reported because this did get a fan event preview. I believe it was on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. And so we don't have, as of the recording of this video, the official Thursday numbers yet. But it says here it's firing up to around 8 million plus in previews. It says Universal's live action take on DreamWorks animation, How to Train Your Dragon, is eyeing around 8 to 9 million in previews, which not only includes tonight's monies, but those from early fan access screenings. As we always say, these are industry estimates, so they could fluctuate by the time Universal's reporting in the morning. The studio didn't return requests for comment on what we were spotting. Well, while early week projections were 65 to 75 million, exhibition has been pushing this one in hopes they can wrangle a $100 million opening. We could use more of those in the summer post-Memorial Day weekend. It goes on to say that the audience score of Rotten Tomatoes for this Dean DeBlois directed, he also did the original trilogy, is an epic 99%. Again, that means nothing. A 77% certified fresh, that's a little higher than Lilo and Stitch's 72%. That picks audience scores settling at 93%. So again, this is going to be interesting because critics, of course, as we know, do not really drive people to the theater anymore and have not done so for a very, very long time, especially when Rotten Tomatoes just basically sold its soul and indicated that they are not to be taken seriously by all the nonsense that they were pushing and all the nonsense that they were doing basically to save movies, to prop up certain situations, etc. Now, Nico Parker, I don't think is doing the film any favors, right? It says here, How to Train Your Dragon backlash over her casting. I just don't care. That's a problem, okay? It's one thing if you're gonna, obviously, make no comment about it and say, hey, fans are gonna say what fans are gonna say, and I hope to be able to hope to be able to bring, truth and honesty to this character, to this portrayal. But if you're gonna say like, I just don't care, and it's like, there's some people that really love the animated movies. I really want to see an exact play-by-play of that film. I hope that you can watch the new version and find something that you love about it regardless. So again, that's a good thing. But for the people that just hate, and this is where she should have just shut up there. She should have just stopped right there, and I think that it would have been okay. But she had to go on and continue. But for the people that just hate inclusivity, hate change when it comes to the side of things, I just don't care. If I wouldn't value your opinion on most things in life, I can't value your opinion on my hair. If I did, I would go mad. And again, there's some truth to that, meaning like, yeah, you shouldn't care about what every single person has to say. However, that's not how you actually, market your movie. This is going to turn some people off, right? The initial casting would have turned some people off, and it's not because of anything dealing with racism or anything. It's more of a, hey, this character is supposed to be a Viking, and Vikings are, again, historically white people and also have certain colored hairs, etc. Like, that's something that people might actually expect to have, right? It is a fictional story, obviously. It is something that is based in fantasy. However, it is also rooted in and based on actual historical characters. The bigger issue is that the character herself is known for her blonde hair. And so even if you were to have dyed your hair blonde or something like that, at least that would have at least been, being true to the character in that way. But as I said, the bigger issue that I have is that Nico Parker just does not come across as Astrid, right? Astrid, as portrayed in the original animated movie, in a movie especially that is essentially a shot-for-shot remake that is trying to capture the same essence and spirit, it sticks out like a sore thumb when your character, when the actor portraying your character is not matching the same energy and the same personality as the one that was portrayed in the original movie. And so again, I don't think Nico Parker is going to be doing a lot of help here for the film. And so if the film does come in, under $100 million and even comes in like towards the lower end or even the middling range of here, I think we could probably point to saying, yeah, comments like this and the choices that they made may have impacted it. Again, to what extent, we don't know. And obviously, it's still too early to tell. But again, she should have just cut her statements off about saying, hey, hope people can find enjoyment in this, and just left it there. But no, modern Hollywood actors, especially these younger actors, just have to, speak out and say more than they probably should. Now, why am I saying that this number isn't all that good? Well, obviously, we've seen much larger openings, well over $100 million, in fact, over the course of this year. But also looking ahead, look at what's going on right now with the early tracking for Jurassic World Rebirth. So this movie, honestly, I don't know why people are excited for it. All right, the Jurassic World movies have been middling at best and overall have been very disappointing, right? Every film seemed to have gotten worse and worse with every subsequent release. $115 million, and again, saying here that's over a 5-day opening span, is expected to be pretty interesting, right? It says here and it's shaping up to get around 115 to 135 million in its 5-day opening, according to the 3-weekend tracking released on Thursday. This is the second Jurassic movie to open on a Wednesday. So it's going to have that Wednesday opening release, and so it's going to have that advantage there. And so one could say, well, hey, that's the reason why it's higher. But again, 115 to 135 million means we're probably looking at it being towards the higher end of that number and probably looking pretty good in comparison to How to Train Your Dragon. So this is the reason why we can look at these numbers here and, of course, go over to our charts, because we love charts here on OMB Reviews, and just go ahead and look at some of the opening weekend numbers for other films and for other franchises. Now, again, the global totals are expected to be probably north of $150 million, right? It's expected to be almost close to $200+ million at the global box office. In fact, we'll go ahead and do this live because we love to do things live here on OMB Reviews. It helps keep me honest as it talks about Lilo and Stitch going towards $800 million. I believe that they did have, it says here, it's won't be lagging at $175 to $185 million global start. So I do think, again, if the film does what the film should be doing, it should get north of $200 million. Right, this early tracking should be kind of defeated by the excitement that people have for it, and kind of like the not seeing the things that should be seen when it comes to these early numbers, right? These early tracking numbers, which sometimes don't always capture what could be a global phenomenon. Again, based on the movie itself, I don't think it's going to hit those same marks. It's going to hit those same numbers. But if it does, it should get to $200 million, right? That's kind of like a given at this point. So if it only gets to 175 to 185 million, that's a fine opening. But let's go ahead and compare it. Even Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, or sorry, The Final Reckoning, opened to $190 million. That's a 3-hour movie in a long franchise. Not geared towards the family directly, right? This is much more of an adult audience. $190 million opening weekend globally. Just to give some perspective there. 175 to 185, movie should be $1 billion, should be a huge film, should be getting well over $100 million domestically, not tracking currently. Again, everything going on Sunday could change everything in this video, but $190 million, nothing compared to the $304 million global opening of Lilo and Stitch. So looking at almost half of Lilo and Stitch's global opening weekend. Thunderbolts was at 160, so marginally better than that. Nothing compared to the 313 million of a Minecraft movie. So you're starting to see a bit of a trend here. 180 million was even made by Captain America: Brave New World, and that film ultimately ended up being a flop. Now again, do I think this movie is going to be a flop? No. This film cost only $150 million, so that's a pretty low budget in today's market. It means it only has to make around $450 million or so to break even, with marketing probably being a bit higher than the standard. It wouldn't surprise me if the film needed to make closer to $500 million to break even. It's going to get close to $200 million this opening weekend. It is still a kids movie, and so it is still, even with middling reviews, likely to do at least decent in that regard. And so I do still suspect that you're going to have, again, even following that old trend on an average movie, doing 3 times its global box office opening, right? If it opens to $200 million, then that would mean $600 million is easily on the table. So breaking even is not going to be a problem for this movie. But perception is reality sometimes, right? Perception is sometimes what crafts, at least, our reality. And the way that we perceive this release is going to be very important. Going in under $100 million in your domestic opening, that is going to create a very big and really negative perception of the film. Having your tracking being to where $1 billion is not even going to be in the discussion is also something that's going to negatively impact this movie as well. And this is very important because we are in the midst of several weeks now where we'll have major releases, right? We're going to have, obviously, Jurassic World coming out. We have Superman coming out. We've got Fantastic Four coming out. There's a lot of big movies. And so this is really a film that should be setting the stage for that. And right now, not looking all that great. But hey, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Do you think How to Train Your Dragon is going to overperform? Again, my gut tells me it will. My gut says that we'll have a very different discussion going on Sunday. But the fact that even after some of the early previews, this is where the tracking is going currently, I think that there is at least some reason for them to possibly be concerned. So let me know your thoughts about this and anything else. Also, I mentioned in the comment section down below. Are you excited for this movie? Are you going to go see The Materialist this weekend as far as the new releases are concerned? Also, thoughts on Ballerina. Again, right now it's not tracking very well. It's going to be one of the lowest grossing films of the franchise and likely won't make its money back. At least theatrically, I think that there were deals Lionsgate made for international distribution, which essentially makes it so that Lionsgate will have indeed made its money back. So it'll be okay. I think that Valiant Renegade and others have kind of covered that. So that's how some movies are actually able to make their money back without it being a pure theatrical release as far as profits are concerned. But still, thoughts on Ballerina and also films like Bring Her Back, Karate Kid Legends. Saw that movie. Oh boy, that movie is just so unnecessary. I give it a bogus score over on Criticalist because it's a retelling of the classic Karate Kid movie, but with nothing really at all special about it. It's a movie that you never want to watch again, and that's not a good thing. The Karate Kid movies are special because you watch them over and over again. With these more classic and modern iterations, especially the fact that they decided not to go in the direction of Cobra Kai and have no connection to it whatsoever, I think it was a really, really bad decision on their part. And I think, again, box office wise, they'll be okay because of how little they spent on the movie itself. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly where it falls this weekend. But your thoughts about those or anything else, let me know in the comment section down below. If this video, smash that like button. Make sure you smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day. A blessed Friday, Friday the 13th. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illich and Miss Modern Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Modern Muses. Also to my Subscribestar people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. Also a huge shout out to my newest YouTube member, Raichu. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing, and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.